Fear is, without a doubt, the ultimate thief. According to our source material today, it's that absolute menace that steals your sleep right at 3 a.m. We've all been there, right? The text describes it perfectly. It's that sudden physical tightness in your chest right before you open a crucial email, the racing heartbeat in a completely quiet house, and that exhausting, endless loop of what-ifs playing on repeat in the back of your mind. So welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a highly practical spiritual toolkit derived directly from our sources to combat this universal struggle.
But before we get into the actual tools themselves, I want you to consider a pretty profound what-if scenario. What if you had an ironclad promise for every single day of your life? When we look at the historical and spiritual context in our source, it might actually surprise you to learn what the single most repeated command in the entire Bible is. You'd probably assume it's love more, or maybe give more, or even pray more, right? Well, actually, it's not.
It is simply this: do not be afraid. In fact, scholars and our source material point out that variations of this exact phrase appear 365 times throughout the text. Think about that for a second. That is literally one for every single day of the year. The psychological insight here is just fascinating. Why that specific number? Well, the premise our source builds on is that anticipating a daily battle absolutely requires a daily defense. The text suggests that God knew fear would be the single greatest, most consistent battle we'd ever face, so a reassurance was baked in for every day you'd ever live. So over the next few minutes, we're going to break down 5 specific verses that act as weapons against this daily fear. Okay, let's look at section 1, the universal enemy. Okay, let's dive into this. Before we pull out the specific weapons in this toolkit, the source material notes we really need to understand how the enemy operates. You see, fear grows in the dark. It absolutely thrives on the unknown, on the imagined worst-case scenario, and most importantly, on that devastating feeling that you are facing it all completely alone. This dynamic perfectly captures the battle. Fear constantly asks, what if, while faith steps in and answers, even if. The text explains that faith doesn't fight fear by magically wiping away every single scary obstacle from your life. That's just not reality. Instead, it directly counters that isolating lie of fear with an ultimate truth. You are not on your own. It shifts the entire narrative from catastrophizing your future to trusting the present.
Moving right along to weapon 1, his presence in the dark.
This brings us to a verse that establishes the absolute most complete foundational weapon against fear in this entire spiritual arsenal. It's all about presence in the dark. Isaiah 41:10 states, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God." The crucial thing to notice here, according to our source, is that the command not to fear is never, ever empty. The text doesn't just tell you to stop being afraid and then leave you hanging out to dry. Honestly, that would be impossible. The command is immediately backed by the ultimate reason, his presence. For I am with you. That right there is the anchor. And this brilliantly illustrates the follow-through of that presence. The verse continues with 3 distinct promises. I will strengthen you, I will help you, and I will uphold you. The source text gives this really beautiful, vivid analogy for this. Picture a toddler just learning to walk, with a father's strong hand tightly gripping theirs. As they navigate the uneven ground, the kid is inevitably going to stumble, right? Their little legs will give out. But they aren't going to hit the ground. Why? Because the hand holding them is infinitely stronger than their weakness. The grip is secure. The text suggests that when we're upheld in this way, our personal weakness is no longer a liability because the strength comes from the one holding our hand.
All right, weapon 2, power and a sound mind.
This second weapon shifts the focus just a bit, reclaiming control from panic by understanding the true source of your mindset. When anxiety spins completely out of control at 3 a.m., our source material tells us we have to trace it all the way back to its origin. 2 Timothy 1:7 offers a serious lifeline here. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. This tells us something incredibly empowering. That crippling, paralyzing fear that's currently tormenting you, keeping you staring at the ceiling, the text asserts it did not come from God. He is not the author of that panic. And the psychological benefit of realizing this is just massive. If he didn't give it to you, you have the absolute authority to confidently reject it. Instead of fear, the source highlights 3 specific gifts you've actually been given. First up, power to face what's directly in front of you. Second, love, which actively drives out fear. And third, a sound, steady mind to replace the panic. Let's walk through how to use this practically. Imagine it's 3 a.m. and your thoughts just start racing toward all those worst-case scenarios. The text suggests you can literally hit pause, Recall this truth and declare to your own soul what has actually been placed inside you. You aren't just pushing away the fear. You are actively replacing the chaos with clarity. You're swapping out a spirit of panic for a spirit of power.
Let's move to weapon 3, trading fear for peace.
Let's see how this builds into an actual, actionable exchange program. Philippians 4:6-7 tells us, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, present your requests to God." Our source highlights exactly why this is so profound. Empty platitudes like, "Hey, just stop worrying," universally fail. You can't just flip a switch and stop worrying on command. Human brains just do not work that way. Instead, the text offers a specific, actionable process. It actually gives you something to do with the anxiety rather than just telling you to stop feeling it. We can map this whole thing out as the peace exchange. Step 1 is simply bringing the fear through prayer. Step 2 is incredibly crucial. Add thanksgiving. Now, why gratitude? Well, our source notes that gratitude actively shifts your eyes off the immense, looming size of your problem and right onto the size of your God. It actively shrinks the fear down by providing much-needed perspective. And step 3 is receiving a peace that honestly doesn't even make logical sense. The source text describes this peace as something that literally stands watch over your heart and mind, very much like a heavily armed soldier standing guard at a gate. When panic tries to intrude, that stationed peace simply refuses to let it through. It's an active guarding force. Section 4, scratch that, weapon 4, walking through the valley. This marks a bit of a transition in our explainer, moving from finding internal peace to discovering external endurance. This is the verse from the text that people consistently cling to when absolutely everything around them falls apart. In Psalm 23:4, we read, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Now, what's really interesting about this is the emphasis on the word through. You don't have to sprint in a total panic, and you certainly aren't setting up camp to live in the valley forever. You are walking steadily through it. It's a temporary location, not your final destination. Furthermore, it's the valley of the shadow. As the source points out, shadows can look utterly terrifying, stretching out in the pitch dark, but they can't actually inflict physical harm on you. Even more profoundly, a shadow is absolute proof that a light is nearby. There's also a deeply intimate shift in this specific text that our source analyzes. Notice how fear drives the speaker from talking about God in the third person to talking directly to him. "For you are with me." The analysis shows how fear often forces us into a closer, more intimate reliance than comfort ever could. In the absolute darkest moments, the relationship becomes intensely personal. And that brings us to weapon 5, forward movement. If the previous verses were all about holding steady, this final verse in the toolkit is a straight-up battle cry. It's about stepping confidently forward into the great unknown. Joshua 1:9 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." The historical context in our source here is just massive. God spoke this to Joshua as he faced the terrifying, unprecedented challenge of leading millions of people into unknown territory full of literal giants. The weight of that leadership must have been crushing. And notice, courage is presented here as a command. It's an action, not just some fleeting feeling you have to sit around and wait for. Because of this, we arrive at a really powerful realization. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It is choosing to move forward despite the fear, trusting that God goes with you. The source material emphasizes that he promises to go with you into every single room, whether you're walking into a tense, high-stakes boardroom, a sterile, terrifying hospital room, or simply returning to a quiet, empty house. You can move forward because the text promises he is already there, occupying that space right alongside you. Section 6. Faith answers the door. So the crucial point is this. Looking at all 5 of these verses together, our source reveals they all fight fear using the exact same underlying strategy. They do not promise an easy life void of trouble. They promise a present God who stands in the trouble with you. There is an old saying, "Fear knocked, faith answered." No one was there. This is exactly what happens when you meet your deepest anxieties with the truths we've outlined today. So the next time your mind starts racing at 3 a.m., don't just sit there and answer with your worries. Answer with these promises. Let faith open the door. Now, as we wrap up this explainer, our source includes a very important, compassionate note that we really need to highlight. Because fear and anxiety touch real mental health, this spiritual toolkit is meant to genuinely encourage, not to suggest that faith simply replaces professional clinical care. Spiritual encouragement is a powerful partner to, but for sure not a replacement for, professional mental health support. If you are battling severe clinical anxiety, please seek real-world medical support alongside these spiritual truths. You are fully seen, you are supported, and utilizing professional help is a profoundly courageous step all on its own. So I'll leave you with this provocative thought. The next time fear knocks at 3 a.m., which of these 5 promises will you answer with? Think about it, memorize it, and let it be your shield. In fact, if this explainer resonated with you today, drop a comment below saying, "He is with me," as your own personal declaration of faith over fear. Keep learning, keep leaning into the truth, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.